Hello, David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. I am here with Gavin Mckinney. Gavin, thank you so much for inviting
My
us.
pleasure.
This is absolutely beautiful. When you invited us to your home, I did not expect this. Is this a favorite spot of yours?
This is the home.
This is it.
This is where I live.
You slept.
Yeah.
Why not?
When it rains, it's wet, but other than that, it's fine.
You know something? I would die happy having a home like this, so open and airy. But we definitely want to talk about something because we're here for a big event, as you know, a book launch. Simon First's Bahamas and Bond book, which is amazing. But you were a part of the book telling a lot of stories, and we thought, since we're here live, perhaps you could tell some of the stories. But let's start with the basics. How did you get involved with James Bond?
I think it was 1975, and I heard that the Bond crew were in town scouting, and somehow I wormed my way into meeting them, and one thing led to another, and I got offered a job with the underwater unit. Well, it was the underwater unit, and being local, I had some knowledge of the areas, and I'd also been in the film world for a few years by that point, so one thing led to another, and they took me on.
Now, at this point, Bond was a big thing. You were very aware of Bond, obviously. Level of excitement that you were going to be part of a Bond film?
I don't want to sound arrogant, but I don't remember. I thought, yeah, I mean, obviously it was very cool. I was, let me start that again. Yeah, it must have been exciting, because I was getting paid to do what I did anyway, and that was play in the water. So it was fun, and I met a lot of interesting people, learned a lot from some of the players, and that really was very close to the beginning. My first film in the business was in 1973, so I'd been at it for 3 years, and The Spy Who Loved Me, I think we filmed here in 75. I think it came out in 76, or it was here in 76, came out in 77. And the last film I was involved with was For the World's Not Enough. The World Is Not Enough. So it's a bit of a time span there.
Yeah.
But,
And you've done different things for the films, like in Thunderball, just to jump back to that briefly. Did they tell you exactly, like, we're going to have you do this, or were you wearing many hats, so to speak?
I wasn't in Thunderball. I was a young boy.
Okay.
Thunderball was filmed here, I think, in the early 60s. But I worked with some of the crew who had been on that. And if you look at the end of this island here, that is where the barge sits today. That was the big underwater
Yes.
fight. It's right out there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Obviously you've been out there a few times?
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. So maybe just go through a little bit, one Bond movie at a time, because again, your roles have evolved over time. Is this something that you wanted to set out as part of your vocation, that you evolve through these things?
Well, my love always has been the water.
Right.
And when we grew up here, there was sailing and swimming. No other distractions. We didn't watch TV. So that was what I loved doing. So even though this seemed like just a natural progression, it was a treat.
Yeah. You were doing a job, but something you loved at the same time.
Yeah. So I started initially helping with locations, logistics, getting equipment in and out of the country, work permits, all of that. And then once that got going, I became part of the underwater crew. And on The Spy Who Loved Me, it was a very small crew. In those days, you wore many different hats, not like today where you're only allowed to do one thing.
That's right.
So it was a small unit, and we accomplished a lot. We had, of course, the main thing was the Lotus car, and then the Bigfoot from the underwater habitat.
That's right.
And the underwater scooters. That's pretty much what we were doing in shark sequence.
That's right. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. So, Never Say Never Again. We've got to talk about that.
The other Bond film.
The other Bond, the other Bond film. That's right. Which many of us still consider a Bond film. I mean, it had the Bond name and cachet to it. What was the experience like working on that?
Well, it was the same producer as from Thunderball,
Yeah.
and again, I knew him well, and I helped him. He had an office in town setting this all up. He wasn't that organized, and once the filming started, I went from pre-production into production with a bigger film crew. We sank a boat for the underwater sequence, had some sharks in it, and I'd have to think a little bit more about all the other things that we were doing.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't even remember the timing, but it was a few months.
Okay. And you say sharks.
Yeah.
So, this may be just kind of interesting to our followers because we see these Bond films with sharks and things like that, but you've been amongst sharks all your life. Fear, caution, no fear. I mean, how did you feel about working with sharks?
Well, they are wild animals, so you have to respect that.
Right.
We have a lot of people who come and want to swim with the sharks because they're just big teddy bears. That's stupid.
Yeah.
But in those days, and it's not done anymore, we would catch them and then we would film with them.
Mm.
So it was probably by today's standards a bit improper
Okay.
because we were capturing wild animals. But we worked predominantly with tiger sharks, and the main reason being for that is they have a very good look to them. And when you release them, they generally would swim in a straight line, which is helpful.
Yes.
And of course, a lot of stuff would be done close up, and so someone would have a hold of the back of the shark while the front of the shark was in frame. And luckily, we never had any accidents, but the crew that I was with, again, a lot of them were from Thunderball. I was the young kid,
Mm-hmm.
so I learned from them, and we did it in a few more films. But if I was frightened, I probably wouldn't do it. Cautious, absolutely, and respectful.
Yeah. And I love the way you describe the sharks. It's almost how actors and actresses are chosen by their look,
Yeah.
good look,
Yeah.
and that they can walk in a straight line very
Yeah,
often. So
there you
it's
go.
rather similar. Did you get to meet Sean Connery?
Yes, he came out onto the underwater set for close-ups.
Mhm.
I think we had him for a couple of days. Him and Caroline Bouquet.
Oh, I think that was
No, Catherine Deneuve. Sorry,
yes.
Catherine Deneuve was in it, and Bianca,
That was with
who became Bianca Jagger.
what's that? Yeah, it was Kim Basinger, right?
Sorry,
That's right. That's
Kim
right.
Basinger, and
Barbara Carrera.
Barbara Carrera.
Yeah. Barbara
Thank
Carrera.
you.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes. We have wonderful people off the set. By the way, there's like 50 people behind here.
Yeah.
Giant production crew telling us our lines. So helpful.
Yes.
But so how was Sean Connery?
He was much happier swimming back to the boat to get out of the water than he was leaving the boat to come down to the set.
He's a smart man, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
He knew his limitations.
Right.
He was not a big fan of the underwater from my perspective,
Right.
but he was professional and he did what he had to do, and he was well taken care of.
It's fantastic. So all these years later, when people that you meet or somebody introduces you and they know that you've been associated with the Bond films, I mean, what kind of cachet does that hold? Do they instantly like this? Do they want stories from you?
To a degree, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, I sometimes roll my eyes, but I probably never was aware of how popular the Bond movies were. I mean, obviously you see them when they come out, but I wasn't aware there was such a fan club following and all of that. So, but I never tried to live off of it or milk it.
Absolutely. You actually, I've heard Simon actually talks about it in the book of like, humbleness, trying to talk to you about the stories and you're like, well, this is what happened. No, we want more.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
It's like, excuse the pun, but like
Yeah,
fishing
yeah.
for more information.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of fun with just about every underwater sequence we did, and You know, the Lotus car was a lot of fun to play with underwater. English crews that I worked with, I really enjoyed that. And I always ended up having a good rapport with whoever we were working with.
Yeah. And now you mentioned the last one was The World Is Not Enough.
Right.
And that was, I guess, a small scene where Brosnan and, I was gonna say Christmas Jones is swimming up. What was your role in that?
Again, I helped a bit with the pre-production, logistics, getting boats organized, and I organized the underwater Bahamian crew.
Ooh.
And then I doubled for Pierce Brosnan where we get shot out of the, supposedly out of the submarine.
That's right.
Do the free ascent.
Yeah.
And I'd have to scratch my head and think about what else.
But I will say this, and I'm not blowing smoke, and it's not because we're sitting on your land, but when we came out of the car to approach you, you did have a Brosnan look. You've got well, you do. You have a stature.
I don't think he's this gray.
Maybe not, or maybe it's hair dye. Only his hairdresser knows.
But you say that. I've also doubled the woman underwater. I've also doubled the black guy underwater. So I'm multi-talented.
You've got a healthy chest, is what you're saying.
There you go. No, that was 2 grapefruits.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Is that what they used?
Yeah.
Did you get to eat them afterwards
It was
on
a
the craft?
wetsuit.
Really?
Yeah.
And you had to keep the grapefruits from not being lopsided?
They stayed in
nice
place.
and firm.
Small grapefruits.
Okay, well, do you remember the
Big
actress that you were doubling for? She's going to love that her breasts were called small grapefruits.
No, I don't. It was in a TV series.
It wasn't Flipper, was it?
No, it was the Bionic Woman or
Bionic.
Yeah,
Jamie Summers probably.
I forget.
Oh my gosh, the Bionic Woman. What's that?
No, it wasn't.
No, she wasn't.
I would have remembered that.
She wasn't the Bionic Woman. It was
and then
Lindsay Wagner. Lindsay Wagner.
And the other one, there was a Bionic Man. Oh, and the $6 Million Man. It
Lee
was
Majors.
one of those two.
Yes.
We did an underwater sequence for both of those series.
So you've checked off everything, including doubling as a woman with grapefruit underwater on the $6 Million
There you
Man.
go.
Everybody's dream and wish, and this was not in the book.
Right.
How did this not make the book? This is going to be the follow-up
Rewrite.
book. Rewrite. There's going to be an addendum. You have to pay extra. Well, first of all, Gavin, thank you so much for telling these stories in such a beautiful environment. We so appreciate it and everything that you've done. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's wonderful. And of course, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience, and we'll see you all real soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.